Why is it that if slavery is illegal in every nation in the world, it still exists today, and it's everywhere, and it's an epidemic? According to the Department of U.S. Justice and their statistics, there are 27 million victims of human trafficking at any given moment today. Why is it when we say human trafficking, we visualize some woman from an impoverished country being kidnapped and forced into prostitution, being plied with drugs and alcohol? I'm hoping that I can enlighten you and dispel some of the thoughts that we have about human trafficking. And I'm hoping that by the end of this presentation, you will be as incited and enraged and engage yourself in the fight against human trafficking. Next. So I'm looking for your help. I need you to help me help them. Next. There are several types of human trafficking. The first, of course, is the one that we always think about, and that's sex exploitation. And 8 out of 10 victims of human trafficking are women and girls. 70% of the females are trafficked internationally. 30% are only used for forced labor. Then we have forced marriages. Well, the Department of Bureau of Statistics would like us to call this now conjugated association and conjugated slavery, because they hate the word forced, even though we use violence and psychological pressuring to force childhood marriages, and it's still available and it's accepted in countries all over the world. Forced labor, we hear about it all the time. And this is when people come into our country, unfortunately, their passports are stripped from them, and they end up working in factories that have inhumane conditions or violence in an effort to get them to harvest their crops. Organ transplants. Some folks actually do it as a benefit, thinking they're going to be paid. Most of the time they're cheated out of the money, or they get a small stipend. Other times people are just kidnapped. Their organs are harvested, and they're left for dead. Next. But the worst one to me is child exploitation. And it just so happens that the U.S. Bureau of Health and Human Services says to us that 1 million children are transported across international borders every year. And young girls are brought into it for domestic servitude, and then they're trafficked into sex and slave labor. There's also rings of begging that goes on across our country and in countries that you would visit. And then, of course, we hear of child soldiers. According to Barbara Smolinski of the ECPAT USA, it's an international organization, and what they try to do, and their initiative is to end child slavery in our lifetime. She's been working for 18 years, and her one focus is in the United States of America. And what that is to get states to sign laws into action to quit prosecuting children that are victims of human trafficking. Our Governor, Rick Scott, this last month, April 4th, this is the Attorney General's report, and here's what he did. He signed an initiative to prohibit the persecution and prosecution of minors on specified prosecution charges. Just last month in New York, a 12-year-old girl was prosecuted and held in jail for prostitution. Her pimp, of course, got her out. Next. The U.S. Department of Bureau of Statistics, they put out a tip report, trafficking in persons. Okay? But the beautiful part about the trafficking in persons report tells us that there are people that are arrested, that are rescued, and they are identified. And 40,000 of those people over the last couple of years, well, since 2013, I think so, have been identified. 40,000. That is 0.14% of the number of people that they say are trafficked. That means 99.86% victims remain silent. Nobody knows about them. Not society, not law enforcement, and not our government. Next. ICE. The U.S. Department, it's the U.S. Immigrations and Customs. It's a federal agency. And Obama put a wonderful woman by the name of Sarah Saldana in. And she is awesome, and she's going out, and she is fighting the fight for human trafficking. And this 2015, 1,437 people were charged with human trafficking. And 400 people were identified. But if you just remember that number I gave you a moment ago, that was 0.14%. That's 0.1% of that 14. So I think we could do a better job. But we are making some headway. And what's happening with now that we have local law enforcement that the ICE is helping, and also that we have teams of task force people, like when we have Katrina, because what happens is traffickers see people that are susceptible and vulnerable, and they go in for them then. That's what this is about. Next. Human trafficking is simply modern-day slavery. That's all it is. It's a form of modern-day slavery, and it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. And it's happening in your and my backyard right now. Whether it be the girl forced into prostitution, or the restaurant worker whose passport was stripped away from him, and he works for pennies on the dollar. My asking of you is to get involved, to find out what you can do. I have made handouts for the red flags, the warning signs that you and I might see every day. I've given you a list of 11 organizations that would absolutely love for you to send them an email, sign a petition, get petitions signed, send a donation, or just find out how you could be active in spreading the word. There are the Polaris Project, there are local projects. I've put on here ways to help people that you might know, and the national hotlines for all of them. And what I'm asking from you today is to not leave here not excited or enraged or in some way want to do something for somebody else out there. Questions?